Ken Ham is apparently still reeling a little after Bill Nye eloquently demonstrated how facts trump faith and logic exposes lies. Ken is throwing more shit at the wall in an attempt to patch over the glaring holes in the story of the history of the world, Flintstones style, which he promotes for profit. Ken's latest attempt is to play the telephone game, promoting a video through Twitter and on his AIG blog, which is available to view on his AIG YouTube channel.
In the recent debate between Ken Ham and Bill Nye, Mr. Nye said that the Bible came to us like a game of telephone.
The two people in this video are obviously very excited at being able to tell us how wrong Bill Nye was when he likened the transmission of the Bible down through the ages to a game of telephones, so we should pay attention.
It's important to understand that Bible translators do not work from the last translation, and they don't get their information by word of mouth.
No, translators go back to early, reliable documents, and they work from these ancient manuscripts.
Ancient manuscripts. Please check for yourselves and correct me if you think that I'm wrong, but it is my understanding that the earliest complete-ish manuscripts of the New Testament Gospels are the Codex Sinaiticus and Codex Vaticanus, both dating to 300 years after the events they claim to detail. To put that into some perspective, it would be like me sitting down today and writing the very first detailed account of the American War of Independence, or perhaps Napoleon Bonaparte's rise to power, and then telling you that they are based on earlier works and are a faithful, error-free reproduction of those earlier works, and expecting you to take my word for it.
So the question is, can we trust these ancient manuscripts? And the point isn't just that we have that many old documents, but the point is that they say essentially the same thing. They're considered to be 98.3% in agreement with each other. And the small amount of difference is just, spelling and punctuation and things that don't affect doctrine.
Now, this is an assertion which simply cannot be upheld. Again, please check for yourselves. As well as the numerous verses omitted from the early manuscripts, which appear only later, and are included in most modern translations, famously the entire post-resurrection at the end of Mark from chapter 16 verses 9 through 20, there are an even greater number of phrases omitted from the verses of these early manuscripts, which later scribes have interpolated into the text to add their own emphasis or strengthen their doctrinal bias. With this as observational science for Ken to consider, should he not also then admit to the possibility that the same level of editing and interpolation could well have occurred in the 3 centuries that passed before these earliest manuscripts were created?
And did you know that there are over 25,000 archaeological finds that verify specific people and locations mentioned in the Bible?
Did you know that there is an actual platform 9 3/4 at King's Cross Station, London? The heir to the throne of Great Britain has even been photographed there. What more proof do you need? If you run at the wall under the sign, I cannot promise that you will arrive at Hogwarts, but it might just bring you closer to your God. More seriously, of course, there is lots of archaeology to support the historic records in the Bible. Sadly, though, for believers, there's not one shred of archaeology to support any of the supernatural claims, any of the patriarchs of the Pentateuch, or the believers' version of Jesus. More sadly for them, the precise same tools and techniques used to produce that archaeological evidence they proclaim also demolishes the literal account of the creation and flood which they defend. The accuracy arguments for the Old Testament are much the same as for the New. The Dead Sea Scroll fragments were written over 1,000 years after Moses supposedly lived, and so the telephone game is very much still in play. Added to which, expert scholars, both religious and secular, accept that there is serious ambiguity in the translations of the original Hebrew. 2 brief but significant examples are the Spirit of God in Genesis 1 verse 2 in the King James's version could equally be translated as breath or simply wind. And the unmarried young woman in Isaiah becomes a virgin in Matthew, who took his reading from the Greek Septuagint rather than the Hebrew. Everyone accepts that the Bible was written over many centuries and translated by various scribes. If I gave you a 12th century court report which showed that a man was fined a day's pay for killing his wife, You might understand the context better if you realised that in the 12th century in England, to kill meant simply to hit or strike.
When you're talking with people who don't believe the Bible, one thing that you can say to them is, there is a book. It is the best-selling book of all time. So whether you believe it or not, shouldn't you at least pick it up, read it for yourself, and see what it says?
I could not agree more. And of course that is precisely what I am doing. Thanks as always for watching.